Mother ignored her mistakes, alienating my brother to the point of cutting ties, leaving me caught between their fractured worlds. My parents have 3 sons and 1 daughter. While I am the youngest, 32M. My eldest brother, John 50M, is by far the favorite child by my mother. My father doesn't express opinions often. When John was born, he had many health problems, so my mom practically lived with him in the hospital for the first year. Every time we talk about something, the topic changes to John. I can tell them that I have problems at work. Oh, John just solved his problems with his boss. Taken advice from him when talking to him, nothing of the sort happened. My mom expedited a meeting he had with his boss. It might be in my head, but I even have the feeling that she sometimes addresses my GF Joanna as Jonna. John can treat out parents however he wants, yet they magically forget it after 2 days. When I was in Caugh, my mom called me crying, with enough urgency to ask me to leave class to take her call. Apparently, John was very mean to her. The day after, my mom gaslit me saying it was nothing. Needless to say, there is never an apology from John. Except for my sister, Mary, 40F, who holds a government position, and my parents who are too old. All the siblings moved to different countries. John to Europe, James to Canada, and me to Australia. My parents visit John in Europe about 3 times a year, for 2 to 3 weeks a time at his country. They spend more time with John's family than with my sisters. They visited me or the second eldest James once. James moved to Canada about 6 years ago. My mother had a lot of problems with James and Mary. Ended up in couples therapy with both. Both times my mom claimed that their respective spouse is taking her child away from her and whispering mean things to them about her. Etc. etc. While Mary had more emotional problems, Mom doesn't love her as much as John. Mom doesn't care about her children. Mom keeps on alienating her spouse. James's problems were very monetary. He claimed that the parents gave him less money than to James, as well as babysit his kids less. As the last one to leave the nest, I had some more knowledge about my parents' finances. And I can say that except for one incident, which I will address later, my parents gave about $250K to John, about $300K to James, about $100K to Mary, and about $50K for me. I went back to grad school and did not get married yet, so I did not need much. In about 2010, my parents received a plot of land near their house, and told all the children that if they wish to have it, they can, if they agree to the following rules. A. The building of the plot will be led and mainly financed by the child. B. The child will live in said plot and help take care of the parents, who are growing old and in increasing need of aid. Mary, who held a government position on the other side of the country, and me, who only finished high school, were out of the picture. And James and John could not decide. James insisted that due to the high value of the land it needs to be sold and split between the siblings, while my parents said that it's a no-go. After 2 years of debating, John picked up the glove and built the house, later living in it for about 4 years. Before leaving the country due to work relocation, not by choice, but this is another story, James felt, and still feel, robbed. The main incident happened half a year ago. My parents, who are still in need of aid, decided to buy a house in Europe, next to John. Claiming this is an investment for the future, when we will pass on, this house will be passed to you up, while I live and plan on settling in Australia, which is, in fact, very far from Europe. When James heard about it, he blocked my parents. And a month ago, after he calmed down, he told me that he decided to cut ties with my parents. That he felt second best at most, that he couldn't shake the feeling that this animosity towards his wife continued for so long, and he is afraid to have the same treatment to his kids. He is also in therapy. My mother, on the other hand, is crying nonstop. About reaching out to him, about trying to go back in touch, about seeing her grandkids. She asks about him every day, and I don't know how to break it to her. The worst thing, she does not accept blame or guilt. She constantly gaslight things about everything being his fault, etc., and now I'm stuck in the middle of this charade. And she acts as if trying to change her in her old age is some sort of a crime. How can I tell her, look, his life are better now without you. It is your fault and he cut you off knowingly. Update 1. Cutting ties with my parents is not an option for me, nor is it something I intend on doing. I wanted to give a little update. I have decided not to take any drastic measures, and simply dismiss any time my parents try to probe with the next time maybe, I don't know, we'll see, etc. Recently, as you might be surprised, the Middle East kept trying to off each other. And I felt like this was the first time James tried to probe about the family. They are all safe, thankfully. My mom keeps writing letters to James and sending it via email. In these she tries to guilt trip him into sending her information, such as pictures of his kids, etc., with wishes for him to soften his stone heart, and every time I hear about this, I am pissed time and time again. She keeps them all about herself, and there is so little if any care for him, how he is doing, and what happened between them. After the last time she sent me one, I was pissed out loud and told her off, saying that if she keeps sending it to him, he will block her email as well, something his friend slipped out. He does read them, at least until 6 months ago. And she asked me, well, what letter would actually help? Can you show me? I immediately thought, this might be a golden opportunity to let her see herself from the outside, and might be the only one in sight. So I agreed with one condition, that she would never send it. If she decides that she likes it, she would have to write something herself. in her own words, and her own interpretation. She was pissed. How dare I claim she might do such a thing? Such blatant plagiarism, etc., etc. She might have said more, but I could care less, lol, and it's not as if she would do such thing, would she? So after working with a friend, who is married to a Skyrim character, love you Shargik, may you have a lovely bunch of orcish humanoids in your future, we wrote the letter. James the First wanted to apologize for everything. The image of our conversations hurting you for all these years is so painful, in addition to the idea that you feel the need to protect yourself from us, your own parents. I cannot undo what has been done up to now, but I can apologize, try to change, and maybe, slowly, we might be able to heal what is broken, yet I cannot do it without your help. I know our actions made you feel unequal, that John is the priority, and I am so sorry for that. We have no such will or feeling, and I apologize that our action caused you to feel like that. We have a very difficult time being disconnected from you, your kids, your wife. In addition, I would like to apologize to your wife. Her addition to our lives included you drifting apart from us, and a lot of this frustration ended up against her, with no fault of her own. And for this we are sorry. As for only thanks to her we received our wonderful grandkids, for which we can only be thankful.
I daily think about A, B and C, grandkids' names, and wholeheartedly wish to have some sort of relationship with them.
Next year, Op's wedding will take place, where we are going to meet. I would like to meet you there in a positive manner so as to allow Op the peace in his special day. He does not deserve that our situation will darken one of his most important days of his life, especially with the current situation in our country. This day is not ours, it is his, and we need to make sure he is the center of this occasion. We need to make this day work, not only for him, but for us as well. I don't wish to go back to our previous relationship. I wish to recreate and reconstruct a new one, in which I can assure you your importance to me, in a way that will be acceptable for both sides, in a constructive, enriching manner. And would love your help rebuilding it. Love, Mom. After writing it I kept it to myself until my mother will raise this topic again. Which took about a month. As we were talking about it I reminded her of my one rule. To which she responded, yeah. We already talked about it. And I sent it to her. After reading it she told me I'm a wonderful son and she is happy to have me. She said that she has read it and understands, and now understands my position about this better. Of course I didn't tell her I'm not the only one who wrote it, but I let her think whatever she wants. She said she agrees with everything but the paragraph about his wife, which she will continue to hate because of. I checked out in this part. I know about all the incidents, none are only the fault of the wife. And other than that part she agrees. And thinks about erasing it and sending it as to him. I was pissed. And lost it at her. Literally one condition and she pisses all over it. I told her that if she does anything of sort, she could kiss my help goodbye from now on, and I was much less nice. She backtracked and said she was kidding. We both know she was not, and I told her to watch out. She started going to a shrink. Once again, she tried before and stopped after 3 times the most. My guess is that she couldn't stand the mirror and preferred closing her eyes for it. But this time she will be persistent. It lasted 4 times. She wrote another letter, about a month after, more of the same previous guilt trips. Took absolutely nothing from my letter, for better or for worse. When I told her to look at the differences and see for herself, yours was ingratiating while mine was not. And with this my hope was lost. And with this I'm going back to my previous bubblehead mode and stonewalling every time they talk about him. The memorial for my hope with this subject will be held at the next Milwaukee Brewers game. Bring beers. Update 2. Let's start with the next family landmine. My parents, with the subtlety of an online scammer, announced they're not just planning future time in Europe. No, they actually exchanged contracts for a townhouse 2 blocks from John's house, with his active help, meaning John attended viewings, negotiated, and even signed power of attorney for legal stuff my parents couldn't do remotely. How do I know? Because not only does my mom call to tell me about the fabulous weather in Central Europe, instead of, the implantation for her hip surgery, but also she accidentally sent a photo of John's wife holding up the keys with my parents, everyone beaming like they're launching a new Apple store. So I send the obligatory congrats. For the house. Barely a day later, Mary started a WhatsApp group with just the siblings, aptly named Legacy Panic Room. I laughed so hard I snorted up my coffee. She's not even trying at diplomacy anymore. She's burning off steam. I see Mom and Dad's plan for their golden years is to follow John, annoy the rest tour. I give it 6 months until Dad is tending roses in their backyard, and Mom starts sending us photos with a countdown to any day you could visit. For the first time, all 3 of us, sans John, vented in one place. James, who I hadn't heard from in a while, didn't write much outside of dry sarcasm about prime European real estate being the least interesting inheritance, but he was there, reading. Mary, meanwhile, vented about an epic holiday e-card she'd just gotten, Mom and Dad's faces photoshopped onto Bavarian milkmaids, with a quote about family most dear and the names of. You guessed it, only John's kids. Now for the super weird part. My wedding is 3 months out, and, this is new, my parents are pretty visibly clinging to the idea that it'll be their big apology reunion. I mentioned how I wanted it to be a peaceful day, but I finally had to set a boundary, no family drama, period. My mom insisted, but it's important for our family to be whole for your wedding. Maybe we can talk to James and Mary before the reception, resolve things, make sure they feel included. The mere thought of my siblings and parents being forced into some teary reconciliation in an Australian vineyard makes my skin crawl. So I told her, in perhaps the most adult move of my life, I will not let my wedding be some emotional hostage situation. That phrase, apparently, was enough to silence her into, I kid you not, a full 90 seconds of shocked silence on the phone. A new family record, she finally said, in a small voice, I hear you. We will try. But here's where things get interesting. John reached out. Yes, John, favorite child supreme, sent me a message. It wasn't anything direct, just a casual, almost sheepish hey, got the wedding invite, looking forward to coming. Hope things are good. After a little prodding, you know the rest of the family are coming, right? John actually admitted something. He knows he's the favorite. It's kind of embarrassing, mate. But I didn't ask for it, either. I get why everyone's pissed. This, from the man who once phoned into a Christmas Zoom dinner while everyone else waited 3 hours for him to stop networking with clients. Here's where the story does that twist. Over the next week, John randomly started messaging James and Mary, too, not with fake apologies, just small talk. James responded with exactly 4 words, let's keep this civil. Mary was suspicious, but didn't block him. As if the universe wanted to further stir the pot, Mom found out. She called me in a near hysterical mix of hope and terror, convinced this meant her desperate emails broke through. I told her, flat out, nope. It's John reaching out, not you. If you want to thank anyone, thank your favorite. That evoked a suspiciously long pause. Maybe she finally registered how deep her patterns ran. Now, remember that therapist my mom abandoned after session 4? The therapist, let's call her Dr. S, emailed me. Apparently, my mom mentioned my sample letter and Dr. S, hoping someone in the family wanted generational peace, reached out to offer resources and family coaching for me, if I wanted to mediate or process. The catch, it had to be without my mother's active participation, just to help me set boundaries and process family dynamics for the wedding. Well, I tried 1 session. Worth every minute. Dr. S guided me through roleplays of wedding day disasters, Mom trying to corner Mary alone to apologize, James snapping at Dad, John leaving halfway for a phone call, and scripts for shutting it down without turning into the monster son. For maybe the first time, I felt less at the mercy of all the drama. Here's the wildest thing. I shared these scripts with Joanna, yes, whose name my mom still sometimes stumbles over, and she encouraged me to do a pre-wedding Zoom with all siblings, no parents, just to lay things out. So that's what I did. It was brief, but something actually shifted for the first time in years. No grand confessions, but there were some let's try not to make this weird for Op and Joanna agreements. John offered to play buffer between Mom and James if things got tense, which Mary dubbed the chicken soup truce. We all sort of laughed. It was almost normal. Latest? Wedding RSVPs are in. All siblings, yes, even James, he and his wife booked flights from Canada, with a no extended family sleepover clause. Parents are traveling separately, but promise to play nice. I'm prepping a playbook for allies, Joanna's brothers, aka the emotion bouncers, in case things go off the rails. Part of me still expects someone will cry or have a meltdown over the seating chart, but another, smaller, part of me thinks we might actually pull off one single, drama-light event. What's changed? Not my mom, not really. But the rest of us have finally started dealing with this on our own terms, as grown-ups rather than satellites around a single sun. For now, that's enough. Update 3. If you thought the last few installments were the opening act, buckle up. The saga packed 3 season finales worth of material into 4 weeks. Routines? Smashed. Family secrets? Upheaved. I now understand why Romans had wine at every orgy. If you're going to witness your entire family dynamic combust like a dodgy lithium battery, you'd better be buzzed. So, the wedding. You'd think that, after the legacy panic room and all the boundary scripts, I'd be ready for anything. Wrong. Picture a coastal Australian vineyard, Joanna's meticulously chosen flowers, and enough familial tension hanging in the morning air to give the grapevines a complex. First, the pre-wedding dinner. James and Mary arrived straight from the airport, visibly exhausted but locked arm in arm, a kind of United States against parental nonsense. For a minute or two, we enjoyed what I can only describe as actual sibling peace, ridiculous jokes about Aussie spiders, stories about Canadian snow, no trace of passive aggression. Even John dropped the networking face and was just a guy catching up with brother and sister for the first time in a decade. Do you know what it felt like? The family we could have been, if only we'd been left to our own devices. Round 2, enter the parents. I'd expected fireworks, or at least fainting. Instead, my father hovered awkwardly by the window, fixated on the wine. My mother, to her credit, whispered hello to everyone and tried, not to launch into her "we were such good parents if only you'd let us" monologue. Maybe Dr. S had gotten through to her somehow, or maybe, more likely, Joanna's brothers, emotion bouncers, with their physical presence at every corner kept people on their best behavior. There were a few close calls. My mother cornered Mary near the dessert table, presumably to deliver an unsolicited "I'm sorry but you should have" Called me on my birthday apology, but Mary held up a wine glass and whispered, "This is not the time or place. Cheers." And walked away. James spent most of dinner bonding over local whiskey with Joanna's uncles, leaving my parents no easy target. Then, in the midst of these careful negotiations, came the plot twist, courtesy of John. Halfway through the meal, he tapped his glass for attention. There is a universally understood danger when the flamboyant sibling wants to address the room. We all braced ourselves. John, for all his flaws, has the theatrical timing of a reality TV producer. He stood, swirled his Chardonnay, and gave a surprisingly heartfelt toast, acknowledging the effort it took for all of us, from so far and so fractious, to become not just a family, but people willing to keep showing up for each other. I saw my mom's eyes water, possibly the first moment of self-awareness I've ever witnessed cross her face. But then John, never subtle, turned to my parents and said, "And thanks for coming all this way, but maybe, just this once, could we toast Op and Joanna, and not the John show?" Jaws dropped. Even my mother looked stunned, as if the universe briefly flickered and rebooted. She started to say, "But you are," and John cut her off, gently but clearly, "Mum, seriously. Tonight, it can be about someone else." It was, frankly, the greatest gift he could have given me, even more than that weird bottle of smoked Hungarian brandy he imported for the wedding. For the first time in my living memory, I became the gravitational center, but not the black hole. So we clinked glasses, and people actually talked about the wedding, about Joanna, about things that had nothing to do with decades of family scorekeeping. It felt normal? Good? I kept waiting for disaster. Instead, the disaster arrived, as always, in my inbox the next morning. Because my mother, unable to contain herself overnight, had written one email to Mary and James, CC'd me, helpfully, titled, "A New Leaf?" In it she praised the peaceful dinner, then immediately pivoted to how reunited she felt with John and how much she'd love to see our whole family back together like this, more often, with John's children and, if I must admit, maybe even a future visit to Canada or Australia? No mention of Mary's city or kids by name. Obviously, I deleted it. I didn't even bother to respond. But James replied, "God bless the man," with, "Glad you enjoyed dinner. Please let's keep things to seeing each other at big life events and otherwise giving everyone space." Mary simply replied with a grinning emoji and a gif of a drawbridge lifting. The wedding itself was better than I could have dreamed. The seating chart worked. Dad wept at the vows. John helped Dad up the ramp to the garden arch and later, after 3 Negronis, told me he envied how openly Joanna's family showed affection. James even managed to get my mother to dance for a moment, a tense, swaying box step, but still, a dance. And my siblings and I, for once, sat together at a table just talking. Just existing. That's all I ever wanted. It's not that everything's miraculously fixed. My mother cannot change her basic script, it seems, not for lack of trying, but because she lacks the tools, or maybe too many decades have ossified the habit. But we've all found better tools to manage her, and more importantly, to manage ourselves and each other. On the third day, Joanna's family hosted a brunch for both sides. The highlight? John and James ran out to fetch emergency coffee, and came back arm in arm, exaggerating their brotherly love to amuse everyone. Mary rolled her eyes theatrically and hugged me before heading home, saying, "Next time, you're all coming to my country, no John show allowed." And then, 2 days after the wedding, my mother called. Of course she did, but this time, her voice was different. Warmer. Not the voice of someone begging for a do-over, but of someone, tired. "You know, Op," she said, "this was the first time in decades that I felt like we could all be together and not be angry. I know I'm not perfect, maybe I'm not even good at this. For the first time in possibly my adult life, I told her thank you. Not for what she'd done, but for recognizing, even for an instant, that her kids needed something from her she couldn't quite give, but maybe wanted to. Now it's quiet. Sibling group chat still lives, and we now meme each other daily about Mom's European Adventure, Season 2. John is back to his work, James is home in Canada, and Mary is threatening to host the next holiday somewhere utterly inconvenient and beautiful. Reykjavik, apparently, no fairy tale endings, but I honestly think we've built a fragile truce, not by changing our mother, but by learning how to orbit her differently, together. So here's to improbable reunions, a dramatic lack of on-the-day meltdowns, and the discovery that, if nothing else, your family doesn't actually have to be your everything. Sometimes, surviving them and finding your own people on the outside is enough. Update 4. Let's open with John. For the first time in living memory, he started group messaging, not just one-on-ones, but proper family-wide updates, usually during his post-dinner commute. Saw a rugby match with Dad, he actually cheered out loud. Or Mom's learned how to order wine in German, now will only answer to Fräulein at dinner. The subtext, John mending fences, or maybe just signaling, "See? I can try too." Mary, meanwhile, decided that bold was the way to go. She announced, again, in the Legacy Panic Room chat, that she'd booked a cabin in Iceland for New Year's and invited all siblings, plus spouses and kids if desired, and explicitly not parents. She posted a photo of the snowbound A-frame and wrote, This is your 6-month warning for coordinated truce and classic sibling shenanigans. RSVP or I'm feeding your invite to an Arctic fox. James replied with a gif of a snowplow smashing a mailbox, which was as close as he gets to RSVP yes. Here's where the next level of family weirdness kicked in. My parents, in their European townhouse, began posting near daily family moments to a group-locked Instagram account. Not public, just invited relatives, apparently in an attempt to let us all share in their adventures. It was, bizarrely sweet, if you didn't notice all the photos with John and his kids front and center, while any of my attempts to share, say, a photo from my honeymoon, would be met with a like from dad and precisely zero commentary from mom. Oh, but then, out of the blue, I get a WhatsApp message from my mother. No preamble, just, have you spoken to James today? I hadn't, but I checked the sibling chat and discovered that James had just sent a photo of his daughter's science project, a volcano, frankly, with more artistic craft than any of my childhood accomplishments. My mom, not content to heart the photo, replied with, John's son built an entire solar system out of papier-mâché. Such talented grandchildren. James left it unread for 3 days, then posted only she got a B. She's proud. So am I. I called my mother, intending to gently point out how not every accomplishment needed to be a competition. But I started, honestly, just trying to talk about her day. She surprised me. She actually broke down, not the usual oh, I miss you, my poor old heart tissue theatrics, but real, confessional crying. I don't know how to talk to James or Mary anymore, she said. I keep trying, and it never works. John says to let it be. I don't think I know how to let anything be. Reader, I kid you not, for a moment I almost felt bad for her. But then she pivoted, blaming the world, her age, modern families, and the weather, basically, everything but herself, and asked if I'd write just one more letter for her, because your way with words touches even hard stones. I told her, with backup from Drive's boundary scripts, that if the words wouldn't be her own, they wouldn't be sent, and if she needed to talk to James, she should do it herself. That evening, James called me for the first time in months, just to talk about nothing. The weirdness of Canadian spring months, if Vegemite would kill a Canadian, his daughter's newest model train, whether I felt happy being whole after the wedding. At the end of the call, he said, I almost feel sorry for mom, but it's like feeling sorry for a stray dog that keeps biting your hand. Next act, John, weirdly avoidant for a while, finally confessed in a late-night call that mom's being in Europe, this retirement next door thing, was cramping his style far more than expected. Mate, she's adopted the bakery as her social club. She tries to call me 4 times a day. Dad just reads and nods at the window. And now she wants Sunday brunch together, every week, forever. There was a certain schadenfreude in knowing the golden boy was finally getting the full, undiluted mom experience. I suggested he set boundaries. He muttered something about escaping to Austria for work. But things weren't done unraveling. Late June, I got a call from Mary, cryptically telling me to check my email right now, alone. I opened a PDF, a copy of my parents' new will. Her friend in government land registry had spotted their lawyer filing and quietly passed it along. In one of those dubious but familial kindnesses, I skimmed through, slow horror rising. The house in Europe? Left entirely to John and his children. The assets back home, including the land near their old house, split 4 ways, though practically all the actual cash reserves were either spent on John's and James's payouts or tied up in the European property. Mary and I would inherit furniture, personal mementos, and a modest sum in acknowledgement of familial affection. James's inheritance was held in trust for his children, should he wish to reconnect with the family. You read that right, should he wish. I stared at it in disbelief. Mary just wrote, wine time? That night, I did something I never thought I would. I took a deep breath and called John. No jokes, no circling. Did you know about the will? He went quiet, then admitted he'd just signed as a witness. They didn't say what the split was, just that I'd probably need to coordinate with a notary when the time came. He sounded tired. Tell the others, if you want. I'm not hiding anything. But I'm so done being the axis of all this. If they want me to have the house, that's their call, but I'm not fighting for it. This set off a chain of events I doubt even Dr. S would have dreamt up. The sibling chat exploded. James was grimly philosophical, so it's official, John gets the fortune, we get IKEA furniture. Mary, ever decisive, called my mom. What followed, live transcribed to the group by Mary, was a 20-minute harangue mostly about intentions, culture, and how John needs us more. At the end, Mary delivered her coup, whatever. I love you, but if this stands, don't expect me to call you next New Year's. Q next morning, my mom, rattled, sent a mass message inviting all of us to a Zoom family forum to clear the air and update the will language as a family. 30 years of resentment, summoned for committee review at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. I will spare you every last detail, but here's the highlight reel. John, finally, apologized for his part, his tacit complicity, his failure to push back, even his absences. I never asked to be the golden boy, but I didn't say no, either. I'll help make it right if I can. My mom, with Dad's support, agreed the will was rushed, perhaps emotional. James said he'd take no money at all, just fair treatment of his kids. Mary demanded, and won, a clause, no disinheritance based on closeness at death. I insisted my parents consider a real conversation with all grandchildren, in other words, actually ask what we all want, instead of assuming. By the end of the call, everyone just looked exhausted but, strangely, relieved? Like we'd all just been through a marathon and no one died. So, as of last week, the amended will splits physical assets, even the Europe house, evenly. My parents, pandemic-fueled anxiety tics and all, have started fortnightly video chats, with all siblings, no John fan club bias allowed, featuring at least one round of sharing something other than John's career milestones. For the first time, when my mother called, she didn't ask for a letter, didn't ask if I'd spoken to James, didn't even compare Joanna to John's wife. Instead she asked, "How was your week, Op?" "Reader," I cried. Then I told her the full truth. "Better, Mum. Way better."